I will share my screen.
That would be great.
Can everyone see that? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Great. Just let me know when you want me to change slides.
Thank you so much. All right. So it is 35 past, and I believe it's better for us to start rather than keep everyone waiting here. And also we can start and we can let different people in whenever they are at the waiting room. Welcome everyone and good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today and for just spending some of your time on the PhD taster session. My name is Yasmin Nouri and I am the postgraduate program manager at the Manchester Cancer Research Centre, which means that I'm operationally leading all of the 4 PhD programs we do have here in Manchester as the Centre of Cancer Research UK, as well as managing the training and educational program here. So I'm here today with one of my colleagues, Rhys, who is the MCRC Comms Manager, and he will kindly address any question you will have during the session. So please feel free to pop in your question in the chat box, and Rhys will we will try to do our best to just cover as much as we can all of the question you would have. And also we do have 4 of our current brilliant PhD students at the MCRC here today with us. Zoe, Jasmine, Eleanor, and Blasius, they will also share their experience about their PhD and a little bit about their research that they are doing here at the MCRC. Next slide, please. So let's start by just this question: why Cancer Research UK, and what is our objectives and what is our vision for the future? So we are the world's largest independent funder of cancer research, investing over £400 million each year across prevention, diagnosis and treatment. So we do this because cancer is a global issue. Next slide, please. Manchester. Why Manchester? Manchester is at the forefront of cancer research, driving innovation through its unique research ecosystem. The Manchester Cancer Research Nexus represents the breadth and depth of scientific excellence in both established and emerging fields. With a strong foundation in peer-reviewed scientific program, we foster interdisciplinary collaboration to address the most pressing challenges in oncology. Sorry, just very brief comment for my colleague Rhys. I don't think the recording has been started yet. So do you mind to just maybe start the recording?
No, I did record it.
Right,
I think it might just be saving to my computer, but yeah, I did press record. So
that's okay. Yeah. And just to let people know that we are recording, and so if any of the attendees would like to get access to it, we are more than happy to share. Next slide, please. And again, let's just keep to this question, why Manchester? So from our students and staff perspective, we believe the best way to understand what it's like to do a PhD here is to hear from those living it every day. And that's why we have captured their experiences in short videos, and we do have different videos such as a day in the life of an MCRC non-clinical PhD student, in which Melanie walks you through her daily routine, showing the balance between lab work, training and community. And in another short video, Jean will share a day in the life of an MCRC MB PhD student, and Flo also share her studying a PhD in cancer research, a personal perspective on adapting to a new city and thriving in a research intensive. So if you would like to learn and to know more about different experiences that our people shared, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and you will get a chance to just have a look to different people's perspective from doing a PhD at Manchester Cancer Research Centre. Next slide, please. So Manchester Cancer Research Centre is a unique partnership between the University of Manchester, Cancer Research UK and the Christie NHS Foundation Trust. And what makes training in Manchester so unique is this slide. And this slide brilliantly captures the heart of our research ecosystem here in Manchester. This image also shows the organizational structure of the Manchester Cancer Research Centre, which is a powerful partnership, as I said, between the university, the largest cancer specialized hospital across the Northern Europe, as well as the CRUK as the Cancer Research UK. Also, it highlights how our postgraduate researcher and PhD students are embedded within a rich network of translational science, clinical excellence, and strategic innovation, from the Division of Cancer Sciences at the university to the CRUK Manchester Centre, and across a specialized group like the Digital Cancer and Tumor Immunology Lab. Our students are truly at the center of it all. So, and again, as part of the Manchester Cancer Research Centre, we do have collaboration with all of the different NHS trusts here in Manchester, as well as Manchester Academic Health Science Centre and Health Innovation Manchester. Next slide, please. So we are one of cancer research, we are one of 7 Cancer Research UK, and we are the Manchester Centre. So we fund research in different theme areas, infrastructure, as well as non-clinical discovery PhDs. By saying different theme areas, it includes radiotherapy, experimental cancer medicine, cancer early detection, biomarker, integrative pathology, as well as innovation commercialization, digital cancer centre, and education, by the end, educating future cancer leaders. Next slide, please. So we are uniquely based primarily in Whittington in South Manchester, and you will also, as a PhD student here, you will have access to state-of-the-art facilities at the Oxby Cancer Research Building, OCRB, where we are based, and also £150 million Patterson Research Building, and learn alongside researchers and clinical staff at the Christie NHS Foundation Trust, which is Europe's largest single-site cancer hospital. Next slide, please. So in this slide, if Jasmine could kindly just show the video, this is the building that we are based, and you will get access to it. Thank you. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the Manchester Cancer Research Centre training office, and in which we all are here and committed to training the next generation of cancer leaders. And this is a group of dedicated educators, mentors, and program leads who are here to support postgraduate researchers every step of the way, from bespoke training pathways to inclusive education initiatives. And we are here to help you thrive and shine during your journey with us. Next slide, please. So I would like to bring this question. I'm pretty sure that most of you who are here, you know that you want to apply for a PhD, but what is exactly the reason, and what is the reason behind of doing a PhD, and why study for a PhD? So personally, I believe a PhD is more than just a qualification. And we here also believe it's a unique period of protected time where you can immerse yourself in your research interest, ask bold questions, and develop expertise that will shape your career. For those aiming for an academic pathway, a PhD is essential, but its value extends for beyond academia, and it is the skills and experiences you gain open doors to a wide range of career in both research and industry. So during your PhDs, you will develop a toolkit of transferable skills that employees across sectors value highly: analytical and critical thinking, project management, clinical and translational insight, technical expertise, data mastery, communication skills, time management, and scientific output And more importantly, you will get connections and you will get a chance to build your networks, which might last a career. Next slide, please. So at Manchester, we train researchers to lead impactful collaborative science. Our programs are tailored, inclusive, and clinically relevant, with a strong mentoring and focus on real-world complexity. We are very proud to support diverse talent and drive meaningful change. Our training program equips postgraduate researchers with the skills needed to thrive in a complex career research landscape, with holistic training approach, which is a flexible, bespoke curriculum that brings the basic translational and clinical research to strong national international collaboration. As we are partnerships, we do have partnerships with Manchester, Melbourne, China Scholarship Council, and CRUK centres like Cambridge and Scotland. And also you will get access to cutting-edge training by funded opportunities such as PhD cert in clinical data science and hands-on experience with advanced technologies. Next slide, please. Thank you. Also, at Manchester, we are focused on training the next generation of cancer researchers through scientific excellence and close integration across basic, translational, and clinical research. Our PhD students follow a flexible, bespoke curriculum, which is designed for the PhDs to meet the demands of an increasingly complex cancer landscape. We introduce and we do have a 6-pillar bespoke curriculum as the training program for our PhD students, which includes leadership to building the confidence and skills to lead teams, projects, and change, clinical trials of the future for understanding evolving trial design and translational impact, equality, diversity, and inclusivity, embedding inclusive practices into research culture, health data sciences for gaining fluency in data handling, analysis, and interpretation, and research in healthcare systems, which is connecting science to real world clinical and policy contexts, as well as commercialization and entrepreneurship, which explores how research can drive innovative and impact beyond academia. Next slide, please. Our training is built on meaningful networking and engagement. From our annual welcome event to the PhD showcase, we also create spaces where our researchers connect, share their ideas, and build lasting collaborations across disciplines. Next slide. So at MCRC, we believe that excellence in research goes hand in hand with inclusivity and a social responsibility. Our students and staff also are actively involved in shaping a culture where everyone feels represented and supported. Through our EDI groups, social responsibility committees, and student feedback forums, we ensure that every voice is heard and contributes to positive change. We also take science beyond the lab by engaging with the schools, community groups, and national initiatives like British Science Week to inspire the next generation of researchers. Our community connects globally too, from the Black in Cancer conference and Let's Talk About seminar series to visit from international speakers, academics, and fellows who bring fresh perspectives. Finally, we are committed to tackling underrepresentation in research through initiatives like the MASC-funded mentoring scheme, which support aspiring PhD students from diverse backgrounds. Next slide, please. And again, we are absolutely committed to celebrate our PGR achievements by writing about them and making sure that they are heard and all of their achievements are celebrated here and beyond Manchester. Next slide, please. But how to apply for a PhD and how does this scheme look like here at Manchester Cancer Research Centre? To apply for a PhD, we do have a group of leaders, scientists, as well as clinicians who write a proposal for a clinical, non-clinical, as well as MB PhD projects, and they will apply for funding through us. So if through an established PhD training scheme, this will involve a competitive selection. And then if the project is funded and registered under the University of Manchester, a call for PhD candidates goes out. And this is where we are now. The PhD, all of the candidate is selected through a competitive interview in January 26, and then the appointed PhD is registered under the University of Manchester. Next slide, please. So here we do have a short video of one of our brilliant PhD students, Mel, who put together some tips for the future candidates of doing a PhD here at MCRC. So yeah, we are just pleased to share her tips and her experience. Jasmine, I think we can't hear the video.
I'm not really sure if that's an embedded option on Zoom.
That's all right.
I
So
do
I believe Reese has already.
Yeah, I've posted the link in the chat. People can watch the video on YouTube.
That's great. Thank you so much, Reese. So yeah, apologies if you couldn't hear the audio, but as I've mentioned, Reese has put the YouTube link into the chat box. So please have a look, and then you can also hear about all the 4 tips that Mel shared with us. Next slide, please. All right, as I've mentioned, we do have 4 different PhD programs, 3 of which are live now. We do have clinical research training fellowship, and this is the application timeline. This is specifically for those of candidates with medical background. So if you do have a medical degree and you are among your fellowship training pathway, this is the best time for you to apply. All of applications have been opened up at the 6th of October. The deadline is 17th of November. The interview invitation will be sent at the 20th of December with the January for the interview for the September 2026 for starting the PhD. And I'm pretty sure that our current PhD students will share more about the funding scheme for this PhD, as well as the eligibility criteria and stuff like that. And Eleanor is one of our current clinical PhD at the moment, and she will also share more about her experience. Next slide, please. And so we do have 9 clinical projects this year. 2 of them are Manchester, Leeds, and the rest of them are Manchester based. So please, if you go through this web page, or if you just, scan the QR code, which was on the previous slide, you will been through all of the 9 clinical projects, and you can have a look, find the best which suits your research ambitions as well as your research background. Next slide, please. The next is the non-clinical PhD studentship, and the application timeline is exactly the same as the clinical PhDs. And again, if you go through this QR code and you go through our webpage, you can find, next slide please, you can find all of the 8 projects that we do have this year, and also you can go through the project description of each of these projects and have a look, find the best which suits your background. And Jasmine is our non-clinical PhD, and I'm pretty sure that she will explain more about this PhD program. Next slide, please. MB-PhD. MB-PhD is uniquely designed for the medical students from University of Manchester, University of Leeds, and University of St. Andrews, the students who are in Manchester pathway. The timeline is quite different. All of the applications are now open, and we have started to advertise the projects from 20th of October, but you do still have time. The deadline is 9th of March, but as all of the medical students need to integrate, to just come out from their medical studies to do a PhD, the integration deadline for the University of Manchester is 12th of January. So if you are thinking about putting in application together, please stay in touch, get in touch with me, and also just make sure that you submit your integration request by 12th of January. And if we do have any candidate here today from University of Leeds, please make sure that you know the deadline from University of Leeds. The interview for this PhD program will be in April, but the start still will be October 2026. Next slide, please. So we do have 9 PhD program for the MB PhD studentship, and Velocius is our current PhD student on this program, and he will also share more about this specific program and his experience. Next slide, please. So specifically, we also do have a Black Leaders in Cancer PhD scholarship program to support, and this is specifically designed for the candidates with Black heritage background. This also will be announced from MCRC, so please follow our webpage and make sure that you stay tuned, because the projects will be started to advertise from 2nd of February with the interview in April and the same starting time in 2026. Next slide, please. So finally, if you are thinking about, am I suitable? Am I eligible? I am pretty sure the answer is yes. And I do have one of our brilliant non-clinical PhD student here at the MCRC, Zoe, and she will share with you how to put an application together. And I'm pretty sure that you will find all of our current PhD students talk today very, very helpful. So if you do have any more question, you can always find me at Manchester MCRC training inbox. So please drop me a line if you do have any question. Again, I'm pretty sure that our current students will be happy to address your question after this session as well. I will hand it over to Jasmine, our current non-clinical PhD student, and thank you so much for your time. And thanks, Jasmine, for sharing my slides as well.
That's okay, no worries. Sorry, I'm just gonna bring it up and share my slides. So, can you all see that okay? Yep. Great.
Yep.
Okay, so hi, my name is Jasmine Morrison. I'm a second-year PhD student in the radiotherapy related research group on the non-clinical pathway, and I'm also the non-clinical rep for the Manchester Cancer Research Centre. So just a brief summary of what my PhD is. It's on the evaluation of cervical cancer physiology dynamics using multiparametric quantitative magnetic resonance imaging analysis and radiomic features, which is a long title, I'm aware. And I'm under Professor Van Herk's group with quite a few supervisors. A little bit more detail. So the aim of my PhD is to establish the position of quantitative magnetic resonance within cervical cancer research, assess the validity of radiomics as an imaging biomarker, correlate these radiomic features with diffusion-weighted imaging and hypoxic associated genetic signatures, and then do a multiparametric imaging analysis evaluating longitudinal changes and tumor physiology dynamics. On the right there, that's the imaging biomarker roadmap, which is how we push imaging biomarkers through into research. And my research is in that sort of highlighted gap between translational gap 1 and translational gap 2, trying to push through so that we can get these markers used clinically. So I just want to talk a bit about, to start with, sort of not going straight from uni. I think oftentimes we assume that there is a one-dimensional path on how you start a PhD. You go straight from undergrad, master's, uni, and that's not necessarily true. You'll meet people from a diverse number of backgrounds. For me personally, I did my bachelor's degree in physics, so I'm a medical physicist, not a biologist, which I'm sure like a large majority of projects are. So I graduated in Swansea University in physics before moving to work in the NHS in development administration. So I could save up and move to Manchester to do my master's in cancer biology and radiotherapy physics, which I graduated from in 2023. I then took some more time to figure out what projects and my pathway for my career, and worked for an additional year, gaining clinical experience in St Mary's Hospital as a cancer pathway coordinator, before finally moving on to do my PhD. And here are just a couple of photos of a conference I went to in Vienna earlier this year, presenting my work on intrafractional cervical cancer motion in relation to bladder volume. And you can see on the right-hand side, some lovely people from my group, including my primary supervisor and I was taken in a booth, photo booth at a club in Vienna at about 3 a.m. So there's a fun side to doing a PhD as well. Moving on to selecting my project, as I said, I took a bit of time out after finishing my master's, and that was meant that I chose the correct project. So what did I look out for? Firstly, what are my skills? As I've said before, I'm a physicist by background, but I also have a little bit of a multidisciplinary aspect with that split discipline master's. So I wanted a project that incorporated that and looked at how I can also use my other skills in coding and image analysis and those things I had experience in. But also what drives me to research. I've always been interested in sort of more of the exploratory side. So a lot of my work is feasibility studies, pure investigative science versus doing any level of optimization. And then also something which I think gets ignored a little bit, but is incredibly important, because you will be in this group for about 3 to 4 years, depending on your project type. What environment am I looking for? Do I want a group that is very sort of high publishing output, high intensity, single focus? For me, I'm a very social person, so having a group where you had some level of communication and activity was really important to me. And finally, what is my goal post PhD? You know, this is a program and you're hoping to get a qualification out of it, but what do you want to do with this qualification? For me, I'd be interested in working clinically as well as research in a bit of time. And I knew that this group that I was applying for had a very high postdoc recruitment, and a lot of people within the team are honorary members of the NHS and often work part clinical, part research. And that was something I was really hoping to emulate with my work. Now that you've selected your project and you've started, what happens then? Sort of getting comfortable and dealing with this sort of building confidence and imposter syndrome, which you will experience because all of us experience it, even the very senior members of staff. So these are sort of my tips for it. Firstly, taking time. Learning how to navigate a lab can be incredibly overwhelming. This is coming from someone who works in a dry lab, not even a wet lab. I'm sure that adds an extra level of difficulty. And this is especially true if you're moving to Manchester for the first time. You're not only starting a new career, a new job, and new working environment, perhaps your physical environment is also changing, and sort of allow for that. This first year is often about learning how to do your project, how to settle in, how to research. So give yourself that space. And not knowing is okay. You aren't expected to know how to do everything straight out of the jump. Doing a PhD is about learning. You are still doing a course, and it is much, much quicker to ask someone than do something wrong, speaking from my own personal experience. Also, talk to your peers. Every project is different, that's true, but you may have more similar issues than you think. I can think of instances of not unsure why eProg, which is a progression milestone website that you will be using when you join our group or our university, why certain things weren't ticked off. And then I spoke to another one of my peers and they had the same issue, and we were able to come to a solution together. And doing a PhD can feel a bit lonely in some ways because you are working on a single project without much collaboration. So making friends with your peers can help, and it can sort of warm the environment you're in a lot nicer. And finally, read. You will have dedicated reading time by doing your literature review, which you're not really going to experience at any other point of your academic journey. Take advantage of that. Ask about key papers in your field. Try and organize reading. Use Mendeley, EndNote. I really like Notion, for example. You can get some brilliant templates out there that can help organize your papers for when you're writing your literature review. So now that you're comfy. Oh no, you actually have to do work. You have to actually do your PhD. So what can you do about it? Firstly, what do you need to do? You will need to be doing mandatory training. So these will be things like research integrity, equality, diversity, that sort of thing. You will need to do a literature review. This is where you read all of the literature out there, or as much literature as you can out there about your field, to understand the place of your work and your research and project within the current field. You will need to present. There'll be a form about making sure you have presented at every year of your PhD. You will also, and finally, you'll need to do a continuation report and viva. This is a summary of your first year and all of the future work you're going to do, and then you will defend it in your viva, which is also a bit of a like practice for your actual viva at the end of your PhD. So it can feel a bit overwhelming having all of these things. I know I've just sort of fired off a bunch to you, but it doesn't have to be a 9 to 5. A PhD comes with flexibility. Again, that might be slightly different depending on your lab availability. For me, I don't have lab availability issues because I work in coding, but I do have recurring meetings that I do have to go to. So the flexibility does change with that, but work in the way that suits you. If you work best from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. or something along those lines, then work like that, but make sure that you are taking advantage of that flexibility. You do have leave as well. I am preaching, but also not taking my own advice here, as I believe we have 8 weeks annual leave, and I think I've taken 4 within the last year. So do not live like me, and please do take your leave. I know it can be hard to take time off when you have a lot to do, especially because if you're not working on your project, that project won't necessarily be done at all. But it is important to learn how to say no to work. You may have a supervisor who is really pushing for you to work on loads of different projects, but knowing your limits and your working limits are really important. And I promise you will work a lot better when you are rested. Burnout really does happen, and it does affect the quality of the rest of your work. If you take a day off and then the next day do a full day of really productive work, that's far better than doing unproductive work for those 2 days. And finally, an academic isn't all you are. You can hear by a lot of people this sort of work-life blend, and that doesn't necessarily have to apply to you. It doesn't apply to me. I enjoy my life and I enjoy my work, and I want to keep those two separate. But you are moving into another place as well. So you join societies, meet people, and enjoy Manchester. And that's it for me. So thank you. And yeah, any questions, pop me an email just for the interest of time. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Thank you. So if you do have any live question for Jasmine, please pop it into the chat box and Jasmine can reply. Or as she mentioned, you are welcome to just get in touch with her by her email. So next we will hear from Eleanor, sharing her experience about doing a clinical research training fellow as a PhD. Thank you, Eleanor. Handing over to you.
Hi, thank you for having me talk. So my name's Eleanor. I'm an obstetrics and gynecology registrar, and I'm now in my 2nd year of my PhD with Team Womb. And just in terms of my research background, I did a integrated bachelor's in primary care and population health during my medical degree, which is where I was kind of introduced to research and general kind of qualitative skills, research skills more specifically. I really enjoyed research, so I took another year out of medical school to do a public health master's, which gave me a much broader range of research skills, building on the qualitative work, but also statistics, epidemiology, thinking about policy and program development as well. I think it's worth noting for the clinical academics in the room that I did not do the academic foundation program. So I don't want people to think that that's that doing the kind of these quite formal steps are required to be able to get a PhD. I didn't do the AFP. I did some global health work during my F3, but then I did go on and do an academic clinical fellowship for my first three years of obs and gynae training. Again, that ACF wasn't NIHR funded, it was locally funded. So that's just another example of how you can you don't have to go down the really formal route that sometimes we're led to believe is required. During my ACF, got lots of experience in sort of management of a small research study, which I could draw on a lot during my interview. I think for the interview for the PhD program, it's really useful to be able to
Have we lost Eleanor, or it is only me?
I believe
Looks like
she kind of, yeah, I think these are connection issues because I don't think
Okay,
she's
so I think
any
she
longer
had
in the
some
chat.
connection. Yeah, all right, issues. Okay, so sorry everyone.
She's
Again,
trying to get back in. She's trying to get back in.
okay. So if you want, you can use this time to grab a cup of tea and then rejoin us, and we can wait for Eleanor to come back to us. Here we go, Eleanor is here. Hi, Eleanor, welcome back.
I'm sorry. You've got a really nice building down at the OCRB, but I'm in the hospital. The internet is not as good here.
Don't worry at all. IT just, caught all of us today.
Let's share my slides again. Okay.
Here we go, we can say it.
Great.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when I dropped out, but there was the research background bit, and then current research is about risk prediction and prevention strategies for endometrial cancer. So for me, that draws a lot on the research skills that I already kind of wanted. Some of those skills I already had from previous work, lots of skills I want to develop. And then there's a strong health inequalities, public health angle, which was really important to me. The main methods that I'm using are risk prediction modeling, qualitative work, and some health economics, which is really, again, really important to me because I wanted to do something that was going to be relevant for policy in the future, and having some health economics skills is really valuable for that. So why I applied to Manchester and things that I think others should think about as they prepare for the application. The team that I'm working with, I thought a lot about the work that they've already done so far. For example, a lot of the research that they've done has contributed to the NICE guideline about Lynch syndrome in endometrial cancer. Also, my team have a lot of great, strong women leading the team, which is always wonderful. The project specifically, as I mentioned, it drew on a lot of things that I'm interested in, a lot of skills that I wanted to develop. The research infrastructure and the network, Yasmin's already talked about in depth, that there are a lot of opportunities here and a lot of really excellent people and excellent training available to you at Manchester. The university more widely is also a great place to be. And coming back to Jasmine's point about joining teams, I joined the university cheerleading team last year and had a lot of fun, even if everyone else was 10 to 15 years my junior. Still had a great time. And then the city itself, Manchester, it's a great city to be in. I've really enjoyed living here. In terms of support for clinical academics, all clinical academics will need something slightly different in terms of whether they need ongoing kind of clinical exposure, what that should look like. So it's really important to create a personalised plan for that with your supervisors. Having said that, I think I've heard from lots of other clinical academics, it is okay to just focus on the research for this 3 years. If you don't have any clinical work requirement, don't feel like you have to put that into your work plan. It's not always necessary, and there's a lot of benefit to just focusing on the research while you're here and while you've got this opportunity. There are lots of training opportunities available within the MCRC and the university more generally, including loads of quite easy to pick up short webinars on professional skills, things like how to use LinkedIn or project management, things like that, which I think are really helpful for clinical academics because we don't necessarily have as many of the research skills that the non-clinical researchers might have. And we've developed a mentorship program within the MCRC so that we can try and support all PhD students, regardless of whether they're clinical, non-clinical, or MD PhD, by giving people, if you're interested in this, we can match you to a mentor outside of your supervisory team so that you have someone else you can talk to, bounce ideas off of, get wider career advice from. And again, that's something we would want to tailor to your needs. So my presentation is quite brief, but Jasmine went into a lot of really great things that are also really relevant for us as clinical academics. So I won't carry on over that in more detail because I think we've already covered quite a lot, but I'm very happy to answer questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. Thank you. So again, if any of the clinicians do have any question for Eleanor or about the PhD program that she's doing at the moment, please put your question in the chat box or reach out to her later. So next is Velasius, our current MB PhD student who integrated from University of Leeds, where he was doing, and he will come back to do his medicines. My apologies. Hand it over to you, Velasius.
Yeah, thank you, Jasmine. Hi guys, I'm Vlas. As I'm second year PhD student now. Presentation will be brief. I'll focus more on the program itself. I will briefly mention my project only because if there's any medics in the chat so they can see what kind of cool things they can do. Can you please just shout if you can see my entire screen?
We can. Yes.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So the program itself, it's basically for medics that want to have an exposure in academic medicine or science itself. So have an understanding of what happens outside of the clinic, a bit back. So what happens on the bench, what happens on the computer. So then we have a better understanding when we're applying the drugs, the medicine, or the techniques, the tools, or anything. We understand where they come from and their importance. So for the program itself, you can either be based in the Oglesby, which is the white building, so in the video, the Patterson, which is the new Crook building, or main campus, that's where I am. And this is the website where you can find more information about your studentship. So, well, that's a bit got me upside down, but so what's covered in this program? So it's exactly 3 years. So you start in October and you finish in like early September. So you can't really go more than that. There are extensions, but they're a bit tricky to get. So just bear in mind, it's a 3-year fully funded. So you're gonna get a normal salary, which you're gonna be spending to be able to live in Manchester and support yourself. And then you're gonna get consumables and travel included, meaning so you're gonna get a code where you'll be able to purchase things to do your lab work. Like your solutions or any drugs or anything like that. And then when you want to go to conferences, there's going to be some money for that as well. So you can pay for your tickets, for your train, airplane, accommodation, stuff like that. It's very glamorous in a way that the previous tuition, student loans as part of the 3 years of medical school are also covered. And then you also get very access to cutting edge technology. So this image here. It's very unique to me because this I call the plug, which is the tumor. So basically, you get to do very cool stuff, and you can take nice pictures, just such as this one, which I might dive into later. And you get really the opportunity to do novel science, right? So discover things that have not been discovered before, answer questions. I would answer to questions that have been asked before, and basically do very cool science that we do not really get to do in medical school because there's more lecture-based and patient involvement. And who can apply? Who's eligible? So any medics from Manchester, Leeds, or St Andrews that have finished third year of the intercalated, so they've done 3 years intercalated into something somewhere, and then they would go back to medical school, but they can still apply for the MB-PhD. So that's what I did. So I did 3 years of medical school in Leeds, then I did my master's down in London, and then I applied for the PhD. Or if you are part of the graduate entry, I believe there is some leeway you can apply after your first or second year, but do check that because it can be a bit more tricky according to the university you are. And so Yasmin mentioned the dates earlier. I have them there for reference, but do pay attention to whichever university you're from, the intercalation process is different and the dates and stuff. So do speak to the admin department at your university and ask to intercalate and that. And do remember the dates are a bit flexible. So do have a think, do plan ahead, but do not overstress yourself about the actual dates. And there is a QR code to scan for more information. So, I mean, the advice cannot be better than what Jasmine was saying and Eleanor. For me, it's more like write a good personal statement and a CV with some background references. These are quite important for medics because we do not have any background in, I mean, at least the 90%. We don't have any background in science. We are medical students. It's a very, very different world. So try to write a reference and a personal statement where you're trying to link that and what you've done before that will make you a good candidate for this. When choosing a project, do not focus so much on the disease setting itself. So obviously this is part of the cancer, so it's going to be a cancer-related topic, could be breast, lung, whatever. Do not focus so much on what the cancer is, but focus on what kind of skills you'll get from studying that disease setting. So that is wet lab, dry lab, computational skills, all that kind of stuff. So do really study the project itself rather than focusing on, oh, you think brain is cool, so you're doing that. I cannot emphasize enough how much you should meet the PI, the group leader, meet the team. Before you go in, really email the supervisors, have chat with them, meet them in person if you can, and meet their team. And regarding the postdocs, postdocs are the people in command on a day-to-day basis. So they're after the group leader. Make sure you ask how long they're staying in the lab for, because a lot of the time you might see there's 4 postdocs, but if they all go in by the time you start, then that's not really that helpful. So just ask that kind of questions. And then you only have 3 years, right? So you need, and you're not really a scientist background. So do make sure you ask and tell the supervisor that you will be needing that support. It's really important that there are people that can support you in the lab and you're not left alone because things come, yeah. So ask those questions. And then, so mostly that's my email there. You can feel free to reach out. And I'm going to very briefly, because of course of time, I'm going to very briefly show you some cool images of what I do just to persuade the medics to do cool stuff. So I'm interested in glioblastoma, which is a type of brain cancer. And I'm interested in the axis of NLP3, which is a protein that activates this protein that then creates hypoxia. So in essence, I'm interested in hypoxia in brain cancer. You can do very cool stuff like this. You can access public available data sets and do your own analysis based on your questions. So this more computational side of things, you can create pretty pictures like this. This is a basic proteomics. We can help us with comparing different populations. You could do RNA sequencing. Then you can do single cell RNA sequencing, which basically you can then visualize every cell in a map and then ask that kind of cell what's expressing, where does it sit, what kind of cell it is, and then you can make and they can answer questions like how is the cell interacting with the cancer and stuff like that. Then you can also map it in tissue itself. So this is the H&E here, and then this is, from what we saw earlier, map it on the tissue itself and ask similar questions, but in a more of an actual 2D space, which is really cool. And these are all things that I've done in the lab. And then you can also, if you want to translate that to a clinical, you can translate it into the mouse. So you can do it exactly the same but a mouse model. So I chose this one for various reasons, so I don't have time to dive into now. But in essence, you can study similar stuff in human and mouse. So then when you do mouse treatments, you can justify what you're doing in that mouse model and justify what your drug works. And then you can do same stuff even on mouse tissue, which is really, really cool. And then you can get nice 2D images like this, and then plotting actual gene expression on time on that tissue. You can do then surgery on mice, which is what I do on a very frequent basis, where you can do operations like in breast or brain, and then process the tissue as you see fit. You can do imaging, like I do monitoring on tumor growth, and I do survival studies. And then you can do, these are stains of tissue with the tumor itself. And then you can then do more cool images where you can take different kind of proteins that are tagged and then check whether they exist in your specimen itself. So basically, I'm just throwing what you here is like the plethora of skills you can get from that MD PhD, and more staining that you can do. So all I want to say is that it's a very cool program from a very cool project that you can do outside of medical school that you might not be able to do again in a different university, right? Because here we have a lot of resources. So if you're interested in those kind of things, feel free to apply. And this is us in the lab and us playing paddle. So yeah, that has been me. I appreciate it was quite quick. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Vilas. So if you do have any question, and if you are a medical student, stay in touch with Velasius, and so yeah, he will address any question you might have. And finally, the last but not the least, Zoe will share more tips around how to apply for a PhD. Hand it over to you, Zoe.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm Zoe. I'm just going to share my screen. If you can't see it, please let me know.
That's perfect.
So I'm going to be focusing on how to apply for PhDs and how to stand out, because we've heard a lot about what life is like once you're actually in your PhD position, but what you do in your application is really important to get you over that line. So I'm a second year MCRC non-clinical PhD student, and I'm in Andrew Gilmore's lab. So we're a breast biology lab focusing on breast cancer, and I'm the current Division of Cancer Science PGR rep. So as Yasmin has said, we have loads of different PhD programs available at the MCRC, whether you want a non-clinical PhD pathway, the Black Leaders in Cancer program, clinical PhDs, MB PhDs. There's loads of different opportunities out there for people to apply to. And it can be really difficult to know where to find these PhD opportunities. The main place people think of is findaphd.com. You can filter it down to biology, then cancer sciences, then down to institutes, but they'll have all the PhDs from all the different universities up and down the country on there. You can also find them on the MCRC website, the CR UK Manchester Centre website, on the University of Manchester website, and some PIs will also post about PhD opportunities on LinkedIn, and that can be a really nice way to see what sort of things potential supervisors are posting, whether they've had any recent publications, and just get a bit of an idea about like their lab. The application process for PhDs are quite long. So the main thing you'll want to do is express your interest to the main project supervisor. When you look at a project that's available online, it will always have a key contact on there. And this is the primary supervisor, and this is the person that you should be reaching out to say that you're interested in applying for their project. And then you'll schedule an informal chat with them, and then they'll usually tell you to apply. They tend to get a lot of applications, so the supervisory team will then shortlist, and then you'll have a first stage interview, usually with the supervisory team, and then they'll do another round of shortlisting, because obviously they can't interview everyone in the main panel interview. and then you'll go on to the final panel interview, hopefully. And then you'll get offered your PhD. So there's lots of different ways that you can stand out in your application, because especially with so many people applying for PhDs nowadays, it's really important that you stand out and really showcase all your skills and your talents. So one of the biggest things you can do is have a really strong academic CV. Academic CVs are quite different to normal CVs. They're a lot more focused on your experiences, your skills, and this is a really good opportunity to like showcase yourself and tell them what skills you have. Again, reach out to the main supervisor before applying. Supervisors really like proactive, self-motivated people. So it shows them that you're engaged, that you're interested. It means that you can personally introduce yourself to them. You can have a chat to them, start to tell them about your background and what degrees you've done before. And then you can also learn about their supervision style and the lab group. You're going to be with these people for a long time. So you want to make sure that you match up with their supervision style. So for example, my supervisor operates on, if his door's open and you've got a problem, you can just knock on his door and go in and talk to him. But not all supervisors have that. They prefer more formal methods of supervision. So it's really good to just get a feel for supervisors and the lab. And sometimes they can put you in touch with their current PhD students, current postdocs, and you can have a chat to them without the supervisor being present as well to get an idea for what they're like. You really want to show that you're passionate and interested. So in your personal statements, in your CVs, in your introductory emails, you want to be backing yourself up with evidence of things that you've achieved and skills that you've gained. Don't just say, I'm passionate, like give examples, show them why. And it just helps you to stand out, that you're not just saying something really generic to every supervisor. And then you want to think about the bigger picture. You're going to get asked why you want to do a PhD and what your career goals are and how a PhD fits into it. So it's a really good idea just to think about that bigger picture and have a solid answer on why you want to do a PhD and not just because I want to be a doctor. So it's really good to just have a good idea of your career goals. So I just want to circle back to academic CVs and how they differ from normal CVs, because it's a really good idea to send your academic CV to any supervisors you're reaching out to. So as I said, these are different to normal CVs, but you will start with your title and contact details, a brief summary of your research experience, your interests, your passions, and you should be tailoring this to each individual project. Then you want to list what qualifications you have in your degrees, including the title of the degree, the level, institution, and your grade or predicted grade. And you might want to include any relevant modules that you've done within those. Then you want to talk about your research experience and skills. You can go into more details about any research projects you've done, whether that's in your undergrad and masters, any research related roles you've had, anything that might help you in your PhD, and include what key skills you've gained in there. Then you might want to include any relevant experience or information. So say you're already a medical doctor, you might have some professional memberships or have some teaching experience that you can include in there. And then you can mention any other jobs you've had as well, and the name and contact information of at least 2 references. And these will preferably be academic references. And this just helps to showcase all of your skills and put them into one compact document. There's no right or wrong way to lay it out, but this is a general good template for an academic CV. And then hopefully after you've done your application, you go on to interviews, and there's ways that you can improve your interview technique, because they can be quite daunting. So one thing you should do is you should research the programme. The MCRC offers a really unique opportunity, so it's a really good to have a solid understanding of the benefit of the programme, the university, what sort of things you can gain from it, and why you want to be part of the Manchester Cancer Research Centre as opposed to a different PhD programme. It's also a good idea to have a read around the project. When you look at a project that's advertised online, there'll always be some background, there'll be some key references. So you should try to have a read around and understand the background. You don't need to be an expert on the project at this point, though. because if you were already an expert, you wouldn't need to do the PhD. But you should just understand the background, especially as in the interviews you will be asked about the project. This is a really big one, is to just stop and take a breath. When you're in that interview situation and you're under a lot of stress, it's a quite high pressured environment, it's okay to just stop, pause, take a deep breath, give yourself that opportunity to think before you answer the question. And if you're going off on a bit of a tangent, again, it's okay to just stop and say, just to summarize this, instead of like just rambling on. And it shows a lot of thoughtfulness, it shows a lot of self-awareness, and it's a really good interview skill to have, to just stop and recognize that you're rambling, and just give yourself that moment to think and recollect yourself. And then the final tip for interviews is just ask questions, be curious. People want to do PhDs because they're curious, because they're interested about these things. So ask questions to the interview panel at the end, or ask questions to the supervisor. Show that you're really curious, you're really keen, you're interested. And it just helps you to show that you're thinking about the wider picture and all the different things you can get involved with. There are some common pitfalls that people fall into when they're applying for PhDs, that might affect your application slightly. One of those would be using the same generic CV or introductory email, etc., for every application. Each project is different, so you should be looking to tailor your emails to your supervisors, your little personal statement at the top of your CVs to each project, just to show that you are thinking about that project when you're applying, and it's not just the same generic one that you're recycling for every application. Not highlighting your skills enough. Sometimes people are a bit too modest. You want to be showing what skills you have and showing that you have the necessary tools and capabilities for the PhD. And it just helps the supervisor to go like, oh yeah, they can do this, this, and this. Great. Not reaching out to the main supervisor. This is really, really important. I know Vlas mentioned it before as well. I was always told when I was applying that you should reach out to every supervisor, because when they're doing their shortlisting, they will look for the names they recognise of the people that they've already spoken to. So make sure you're reaching out to them, show that you're interested, you're keen, and that you want to do their project. And then not researching the programme and project. This is something you'll get asked in the interview stage. So just make sure that you've got a solid understanding of the background. Again, you don't have to be an expert, you just need to have a rough idea of what the project is about and the aims and the goals. But if you follow all these, hopefully you should get through, and we'll hopefully see some of you in the new intakes next year. But good luck with your applications, and I've put my email on here for you to reach out to me with any questions.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Zoe, for sharing your amazing tips with the rest of the candidates. So it brings us to the end of the session for today as the PhD taster session for 25-26. We apologize again for some tech issues we faced early today, this afternoon, and hope you all enjoyed the session and you enjoyed all different talks around different PhD programs, as well as the PhD application tips. If you do, I believe we address most of the questions which were in the chat box, thanks to Reese and also our current PhD students. But if you do have any more questions, please stay in touch with us. And as Reese mentioned, we will also share the recording with all of the attendees by using the email address that you have used to register for this session. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope you enjoy the rest of the day and hope to see your application and welcome you in the next cohort for doing your PhD here with us at the MCRC. Thank you.